So the first thing that she says Evangeline took from her was sleep. And that is what a new baby does. Brian chose an expert for Mother's Day. I've been a mother for 64 and a half years. My husband and I have 9 children, 15 grandchildren, and our second great-grandchild on the way. So I have experienced what it is to raise children, and I have my lovely daughter Cassandra and my grandson Tyler with me this morning. So I'm going to do the same thing that Alex did. I'm going to ask you to just relax into this sacred space and take a deep breath with me. We just took a breath class, and there's all kinds of ways to concentrate on your breath. So I'd like you to think in terms of counting to 6 as you take an in-breath, hold it 2, and then release it 8. So with me. Relaxed. And I want you to invite you to notice what you might be feeling on Mother's Day. Because there's all kinds of feelings that come with Mother's Day. Complex thoughts and emotions. For some of you, it's wrapped in warmth and gratitude. And you're thinking of a woman, or perhaps a man, who held you and guided you and believed in you. And your heart's full. And for others, it arrives with a complicated weight. Maybe grief. I know my mother has been dead several years now, but I had her for 97 years. And I can still feel in my heart the loss because she was so dear to me. And we were very close friends. Maybe you feel longing. And almost all of us have some old wounds that never quite healed when our mother really... My mother was so angry when I plugged the 2 keys into the electrical outlet that she grabbed her house shoe and beat me half to death. Now, I know it's because she was concerned, but at the time I just thought, oh my God, is she upset? And I did a lot of things like that, and that's the thing you got to remember. You see, children aren't perfect any more than mothers are. They sometimes get into some real trouble and cause us real grief. So maybe your relationship with your mother wasn't what you expected. It seldom is. And for some of you, it might have been a mixture, probably for most of us. And all of those thoughts and feelings, you should welcome them. And this is a space for the whole truth of your experience. Just take time today to be with that. So I want to talk about a mother-child relationship, but not just as a personal experience, because you see there's a spiritual force in your life that comes from that relationship with your mother. It is a relationship that shapes you more profoundly than almost anything else in your life. It helps open you to love, and it helps you learn to be love. Our relationship with our mother influences our relationship with all others. I remind you, the primary commandment of Christianity as taught by Jesus was to love. He said, love God with all your heart and mind and soul, and your neighbor as yourself. That's the heart of Christianity. That's the message of Jesus. And we first feel that from our mother. Now, if we were fortunate enough to have someone in our life that gives us loving care as a small child, we begin to form an understanding of love. We begin to learn about love, what it is to be loved and to love. So I want you to think of who mothered you in your life. It wasn't always the mother who birthed you. And there were a lot of other people besides the woman who birthed you. I know in my family, my mother helped me mother my children. And I know in this room, there's a wider range of stories than I can even imagine about all the people that helped us get to this place. An aunt, a family friend, a grandmother, a foster parent. Somebody who helped you feel particularly seen, appreciated, and maybe even mentored by a coach or a teacher. Maybe you were fortunate enough to have several. You had a family and they all kind of looked after you and made sure you were safe and you were loved. Perhaps the person who most embodied the mother principle in your life was a man. A father who showed us both strength and tenderness. Or maybe you lost your mother early and your father did the best he could, but he wasn't always tender. Maybe you had a grandfather that knew how to hold space for you, or a brother who stepped in when no one else did. So you see, the mother we're honoring today is not about gender. It's an energy in your life. It's a function, somebody who saw after you when you were not able to see after yourself. You were small, you were helpless, and somebody helped you survive and thrive. If you were fortunate, you had several people who supported you as a child. So I invite you to hold in your heart whoever that person or persons were who mothered you. Let their face or faces come to mind. Let their energy be present with you in this room. But let's continue to examine the role of mother. We all hold an idea of what a mother is. And maybe our mother wasn't that. Maybe she didn't bring cupcakes to the homeroom. Maybe she wasn't all that girly and feminine. Maybe she taught you to climb trees. Maybe she is the very one that got down and played cars and trucks with you. Or in my case, it was G.I. Joe and airplanes, but whatever. But there's a universal template that gives us all certain expectations of what we think a mother's going to be. We expect certain behaviors. And we call that universal template an archetype. An archetype is a universal pattern, a prototype. It describes the fundamental role that the human psyche returns to again and again across cultures and centuries. In the great wisdom traditions, in mythology and psychology and the world's sacred stories, the mother is one of the most powerful archetypes that exists. Say the word mother, and certain characteristics or behaviors come to mind. And like every archetype, the mother has both a light face and a shadow face. The light face of the mother archetype is one of the most beautiful forces in human experience because it's unconditional love, nurturance, protection. You know, the mother bear will protect her cubs. There's the warmth of being held, the safety of being known. The mother in her light is the one who says, you are enough and you belong. In many spiritual traditions, the divine itself will take on the mother face because there's something about that quality of love that points toward the sacred. Let's remember that some of the Bible verses describe God's relationship with us in ways that remind us of a loving light face of a mother. There's a Bible verse that talks about God birthing everything, including us. There's a Bible verse that says God has gathered his people like a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. There's one that talks about the nurturing and comforting nature of God. So God has both feminine and masculine attributes. Now we know we usually say God the Father, and we say He. Some years back, some of the New Thought organizations started saying Mother, Father, God to remind us that sometimes the love of God feels a little bit more like the mother than the father. Now the shadow face of the mother archetype is equally powerful. It's more difficult to speak of, especially on Mother's Day. Maybe you had a mother that was controlling, overly protective, and had conditions attached. I'll love you if you do this. I'll love you if you act like that. You must behave like this in order for you to feel my love. They didn't see their child clearly. They're too lost in their own pain. Maybe your mother was at times absent physically or emotionally, and she wounded you through her criticism, sometimes neglect, through expectations you had that she never met. Now, most real mothers, most real mothering figures have both the light and the shadow. They're human beings, and they're doing something extremely, extraordinarily hard. To be generous, even beyond your own needs at times, is difficult. Sometimes a mother didn't have the tools they needed to heal themselves. So the light and the shadow you see live side by side. And what we received was a mixture of light and dark. And that's what we have carried forward in our lives, all of us. That mixture influences how we're able to feel about love, how we can express love, how we can form loving relationships. Now, I want to stay there for a minute in the emotional truth of how deeply your relationship with a mothering figure has influenced how you can give and receive love. Because no relationship in our lives, not our romantic partnerships, our friendships, sometimes even a relationship with ourselves, is quite as formative as the relationship with the person who mothered us. Neuroscience tells us this, psychology tells us this, and if we're honest, our own bodies tell us this. This is the relationship where we first learned, am I safe? Am I seen? Am I worthy of love? And the answers we received in words, in touch, in presence, or absence wired our nervous systems. They shape the lens through which we see the world. If we were held with consistent love and warmth, you received a template that said, the world's fundamentally safe. Love is reliable. I deserve to be here. I deserve love. I am love. If the love was intermittent, conditional, or absent, you received a different template. One that perhaps said, love is something I have to earn, and I better be careful. I better make myself very small, or perfect, or invisible. And that you have to find a way to heal. Now, neither template is a life sentence. We're not fated to live out the patterns that we received forever. You see, we mature. There's a gift of our own consciousness, of a spiritual understanding, of the love of God, of a spiritual practice and a spiritual community, where there's a safe space to reflect on our childhood, perhaps work on the healing that have caused wounds. Emotional healing allows us to have a more mature understanding of the relationships we experience in childhood. We sometimes forget when we're thinking back on something 30 years ago, 40 years ago, how young we were when we formed that belief, and that we can grow from that into a deeper understanding. But we need to acknowledge the weight of what was given to us, and we need to honor it, be grateful for the love and support that the mother figures in our life did give us. Let's forgive the harm we experienced. And here's what I've come to believe, what I see lived out in the lives of people. The way we were loved or not loved by the person who mothered us is our first blueprint for our capacity to be love in the world. If we were mothered with abundance, with joy and delight and safety, there's a generosity that flows from us naturally, a trust and openness. We might find it easier to offer love freely because we know in our bones, love's not scarce. We experienced it from our mother and our family of origin. But if you were mothered with pain or absence or harm, you might find yourselves loving from a place of fear. We might give love as a way of trying to make ourselves safe rather than as an expression of our deepest truth that that's what we are. We are love. We might hold our love back because somewhere deep inside we learned love costs something we can't afford to lose. Both paths have wisdom. Both paths lead, if we're willing to walk them with awareness, toward the same destination, a capacity to love more freely, more fully, and more unconditionally. Now, I mentioned earlier in this talk that the fundamental teaching of Christianity is to love God and our neighbor. We often forget this essentially means to love all, because our neighbor represents those who are brought into our lives in any way. And today, with such a global world, we're all neighbors. And the divine principle of oneness reminds us we're all connected. Humanity is one with each other and one with God. Christianity teaches the understanding that the most fundamental thing a human being comes here to do is to love. The truth is discussed in other religions as well. I did a meditation from the Metta Sutra. The Pali language is the common language of Sanskrit. And metta came from the word in Pali, metra, which means friend. So the Metta Sutra, or Sutta in Pali language, teaches also loving kindness. And this was 500 years before Jesus. Buddha lived 500 years before Jesus. And this is attributed to Buddha. Just as a mother would protect her only child with her own life, even so let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings. Let that land for a minute. I've heard it paraphrased, let the whole world love the whole world as a mother loves her only child. Because the Buddha wasn't saying to love people in general, in a vague way. He was telling us the most visceral, primal, fiercely unconditional image of love that human beings know, a mother with her child. That's the standard by which we love others. Love like that. Can we learn to care for our fellow human beings in this manner? It's at the very heart of the Buddhist tradition, metta, which translates into loving kindness of our friends. But metta is more than kindness. It's radical, active, unconditional orientation of goodwill toward all beings. And it doesn't require anything in return. We love because we are love. Metta is not a feeling that we wait to arrive. It's a practice for how we live our lives. It's a muscle we build. One breath, one meditation, one moment of choice at a time. Because I believe humans are born to be love. Now here's the invitation I want to leave with you today. Whatever you received from the person who mothered you, whatever the mixture of the light and the shadow, of nourishment and wound, you are here. You are conscious. You are choosing to learn to ask yourself the most important question a human being can ask. How can I bring love into the world? How can I be loving to others? If you receive pain or wounding, the invitation is perhaps even more sacred. To grieve what was missing, to offer yourself the tenderness yourself of what had been withheld, and discover, often with great surprise, you are capable of generating love from within. And the mother you needed, in some deep sense, you can become. Because that's what metta teaches, that love, real love, boundless love, is not something that comes from outside. It's our nature. It's what we're made of. Underneath all the conditioning, all the stories, and our spiritual work is to unlearn the barriers to love and come home to what was always there. So today on this Mother's Day, I ask you to honor who birthed you and whoever might have mothered you, with gratitude, with forgiveness if that's what's needed. Notice how the relationship shaped your capacity to love, and choose with full consciousness to let your love be shaped not only by your past, but by your deepest intention to bring love into the world. The world needs love. And third, practice it every day. Be loving kindness, even if just a moment in every day. So right now, close your eyes, call to mind someone you love easily, and wish them well. May you be happy, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be free. Then extend that wish outward to someone neutral, maybe the cashier you saw yesterday, and then to somebody difficult. We all have those. And then to the whole world. And that's the path. That's the practice. That's what it means to love God and your neighbor. Thank you, and happy Mother's Day.